She was built to protect the fleet, yet in just 90 minutes, the USS Bismarck Sea became the last United States carrier lost to kamikaze attack, her fiery end off Iwo Jima raising questions that haunt history. Why did a pair of suicide planes overpower modern defenses, trigger uncontrollable explosions, and erase a warship designed for survival? No camera has ever confirmed the location of her grave beneath the waves. What details turned routine patrols into disaster, and what secrets still rest on the Pacific seabed? USS Bismarck Sea measured 512 feet from bow to stern, a compact hull by carrier standards. As a Casablana-class escort carrier, she carried up to 27 aircraft packed tightly in a single hangar deck beneath the flight deck. Every inch of space was used. Planes lined up wingtip to wingtip, ordnance stored close at hand, and aviation gasoline tanks fitted deep below with fuel lines running up through the decks to fueling stations. The ship's design was all about speed and efficiency. Built in just a few months at Kaiser shipyards, her structure prioritized rapid deployment over heavy armor or redundant systems. Her hangar volume, 260 feet long and 45 feet wide, became a hive of activity whenever flight operations ramped up. Planes were serviced, armed, and fueled in quick succession, especially during invasion support when air sorties cycled constantly from dawn to dusk. Aviation gasoline, more than 300,000 gallons on board, traveled through pressurized pipes routed vertically from the deep tanks up to the hangar and the flight deck. Those lines ran close to ordnance elevators and through cofferdams meant to slow fire, but the distances were short. Just a few decks separated volatile fuel from bombs and shells. The main magazines, holding hundreds of tons of ammunition, sat barely 15 to 25 feet below the hangar deck. When ordnance needed to be lifted topside, hydraulic elevators punched straight through the ship, creating open shafts that could funnel flames from one level to the next. Operating at maximum tempo off Iwo Jima, Bismarck Sea's hangar would be crowded at dusk. Planes fueled, armed, and ready for night operations, with aviation gasoline vapors lingering in the air. The proximity of fuel lines, loaded aircraft, and magazines meant that a single spark, if it found the wrong path, could ignite a chain reaction. In this environment, the difference between a routine evening and disaster could come down to one breach. One moment's failure in a ship designed to do everything fast, but with little margin for error. At dusk on February 21, 1945, the air around Iwo Jima was thick with tension. Radar screens lit up with blips, Japanese aircraft closing fast, using the low light and sea haze to mask their approach. The Bismarck Sea, crowded with fueled and armed planes, had just finished recovering her own aircraft when the first attacker broke through. Flying barely above the waves, a single-engine bomber, most likely a Nakajima B-6N, came in from starboard, hugging the surface to evade anti-aircraft fire. Gunners opened up, tracers streaking out, but the plane held its course, driven by a pilot who had no intention of pulling up. The impact came just aft of the island, near the after elevator and below the forward 40mm gun mount. Aluminum skin tore open. The kamikaze slammed through the flight deck, scattering fragments and flaming fuel into the hangar below. 4 torpedoes, jarred from their racks, crashed onto the deck, adding to the chaos. The elevator cables parted, dropping the lift platform into the inferno. At that moment, the ship's main fire main, the vital saltwater pipe for firefighting, was ruptured. Flames raced across the hangar, licking at aircraft still heavy with gasoline and ordnance. Before damage control teams could regroup, a second attacker dove in, drawn by the glow of burning avgas and the confusion on deck. This plane struck just forward of the elevator well, punching through the deck and detonating in the heart of the firefighting party. The explosion buckled bulkheads and collapsed the clipping rooms where ammunition was stored and prepared for use. In seconds, the organized response turned to devastation. The crew lost not just key personnel, but also the ability to get water to the flames. The fire main was gone, hoses went dry, and the flames found new fuel in every direction: aircraft, bombs, and gasoline. Within 1 minute, 2 kamikazes had breached the ship's defenses. Fires raged uncontrolled from hangar to magazines, and the first signs of ammunition cook-off echoed below. The Bismarck Sea's fate was sealed not by a single blow, but by a rapid surgical assault that left no time for recovery. Damage control was now a desperate, fragmentary effort as the ship's systems failed in quick succession. Flames raced unchecked through the Bismarck Sea's lower decks, feeding on gasoline, paint, and the tightly packed ammunition that lined the ship's core. With the fire main ruptured and hoses dry, even the most determined damage control teams found themselves outmatched. Within minutes, the heat reached the clipping rooms, spaces where gunners had stacked shells and powder for quick access. There, the first ammunition cooked off, sending shockwaves through the deck and scattering shrapnel. Bulkheads buckled, doors jammed in their frames. Power flickered, then failed entirely as electrical cables burned through and the main switchboard shorted out. Without electricity, pumps could not move water, and hydraulics for watertight doors froze in place. Darkness and smoke choked the passageways. The ship's internal phones, lifelines for coordination, fell silent, isolating teams who were now fighting for their own survival more than for the ship. Every new explosion sent fire and debris into adjacent compartments, igniting fresh blazes faster than anyone could hope to contain them. Flooding began as seawater poured through ruptured hull plates and open hatches. With pumps disabled, water spread unchecked below the waterline. The Bismarck Sea developed a list to starboard, slow at first, then accelerating as more compartments filled. The angle made it impossible to move heavy gear or wounded men. Ammunition continued to detonate below, each blast opening new wounds in the hull. On the bridge, Captain Pratt and his officers watched the damage reports dwindle to silence. The list passed the point of recovery, and by then the ship was beyond saving. The order to abandon ship echoed through what was left of the intercom, then by word of mouth. Sailors scrambled to the rails, some lowering ropes, others leaping straight into the black water below. In less than half an hour from the first explosion, organized resistance to the fire had ended. The Bismarck Sea's fate was sealed not by a single catastrophic event, but by the collapse of every system meant to keep her afloat. Night swallowed the Bismarck Sea's survivors as they abandoned ship. Hundreds found themselves scattered in the Pacific, clinging to rafts, debris, or nothing at all. The water was cold, heavy with oil, and laced with floating wreckage. Darkness brought confusion. Voices called through the spray, but the only light came from distant burning fuel and the faint silhouettes of destroyers weaving through the chaos. Some men drifted for hours before help reached them. Rescue began almost as soon as the carrier disappeared beneath the waves. 3 destroyers and 3 destroyer escorts maneuvered through the debris field, their searchlights sweeping the water. The destroyer Edmonds alone pulled 378 men from the sea. Sailors hauled survivors aboard, many suffering from burns, shock, or hypothermia. Oil-coated faces and uniforms, making recognition difficult. By dawn, the tally was clear and sobering. Of the 923 men aboard, 605 survived. The rest, 318, were lost to fire, explosion, or the sea itself. For some, the ordeal did not end with rescue. Survivor accounts describe the sound of aircraft engines overhead and the persistent fear that enemy planes might return and strafe men in the water. Official reports do not confirm attacks during the rescue, but the anxiety was real. The threat of the enemy lingered even as dawn broke over the operation. Today, the Bismarck Sea lies somewhere in deep water southwest of Iwo Jima. Her precise resting place remains unconfirmed. There is no remotely operated vehicle footage, no sonar mosaic, only navigation estimates and survivor testimony. Locating the wreck would demand a modern deep-sea survey, starting with multi-beam sonar to map the seafloor, followed by side-scan sonar to pinpoint the hull, and finally a remotely operated vehicle to document the site without disturbing it. Any future search must balance forensic curiosity with respect for the 318 men still entombed below, treating the wreck as both a historical record and a war grave. The wreck of Bismarck Sea rests unseen. It is a real war grave in deep Pacific waters, and its exact site remains unconfirmed. As technology brings more wrecks into view, each discovery tests how we balance careful investigation with respect for the fallen. Some stories, even today, demand answers and remembrance in equal measure. Share your thoughts below.